Hello everyone, my name's John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to my channel where today we are going to do another book review that I promised in my last video. Because today we are going to talk about a book that's been talked about quite a lot on BookTube and all the other bookish platforms. Namely today we are going to talk about Jennette McCurdy's new book, Half His Age. Now, I picked this up because I really enjoyed McCurdy's autobiography. I'm glad my mom died. It was one of my favorite books I read in that year. I read it in like 3 days. I quite enjoyed her writing style, and I was excited to hear what I was excited when I heard that she is going to publish her first debut novel, her first fictional novel, and this one ended up being Half His Age. Now, I know that this was already talked about quite a lot before this even came out because of this book's main topic, namely a relationship between a 17-year-old girl and her creative writing teacher. Now, as you can already guess from hearing about this general premise, we are going to talk about quite some heavy stuff today. So please make sure you're in the right mind space to watch that today. If any of those kinds of topics like grooming, sexual assault, sexual relationships between underage people and adults, if anything along those lines makes you uncomfortable or triggers you in any way, it's completely fine to skip this video or watch it at a later date. Please make sure you're safe and comfortable at first. That's what's most important. So, yeah, that's just what I wanted to know before we jump into this. So, this is I think you can say, a controversial book. And I to be completely honest, I was a little bit nervous going into it because I had heard a couple of things about it already before buying it. And like I knew it was going to be quite like crass and a bit like overly sexual and all that, and that's usually stuff I'm not entirely comfortable reading. But in the end, I decided, hey, I like McCurdy's previous book. I like her writing style, and I want to see how she explores this topic that's also close to her own life. If you've read her autobiography, you know what I'm referring to. So in the end, I was like, come on, let's just read it and see what this actually is all about. Also, right here in the beginning, I have to talk spoilers when I talk about this book, just because I think it's important that we talk about the whole picture that unfolds in this story too, so that we can really dive into what's actually going on in this book. And I just want to start with like maybe giving a brief synopsis of what actually happens in this book so we have an idea of what's actually going on. So our main character in Half His Age is 17-year-old Waldo. And Waldo is a very stereotypical um like girl of her age. She has a bit of a shopping addiction. Like, her shopping for items is a big theme throughout the book. Like she always buys all the new stuff online from Shein, from Amazon, from all, like, it doesn't matter where. It's definitely also not very environmentally aware or any of that. She even has like a job um at a I don't, but it's a pretty well-known clothing line that I'm not remembering right now. Actually, like, it works at to actually finance like her binge shopping, so to speak. She is quite. I'm not quite sure if you could say like promiscuous. I guess she doesn't have a really like stable romantic relationship or anything. This book literally starts with her like sleeping with a rando other boy who like immediately breaks up with her afterwards and all that. She comes from a difficult home. Her mother is quite young. Like, Waldo's mom herself, I think, was a teenage mom when she had Waldo. I think she was like 16 years old. And Waldo's dad also walked out on the family when she was quite young. And she grows up in a trailer park with a mom that's barely home at all. Like, we barely have actual encounters with her mother. They usually communicate through like little post-it notes or text messages, because the mom is barely home at all, because she also has like some relationship troubles going on herself with like a really weird on and off again relationship that she's having. And then one day at Wallo's school, she starts a creative writing class, and there she meets I think like he's in his 40s, the teacher called Mr. Corgi. He's only ever referred to as Mr. Corgi. And the moment she sees him, Waldo immediately has all these like really big like sexual feelings about him. Like she sees him and immediately it's like sort of like desires him and thinks that there's something special about him, and she's out to like get with him, like no matter the cost. And from then, as you can guess, a really toxic relationship develops. Like at first, when the like first initial contacts happen, it all seems sort of okay at first. Then things go a bit further. A line is crossed when she kisses him, and at first the teacher is like, "No, no, no, we're not doing that." But eventually, the teacher ignores his own lines that he wanted to draw, but he completely forgets all about that. They do start a sexual relationship. The teacher, by the way, married, has a kid. Obviously, they know nothing about that. And that it's really just an exploration of this really uh, fucked up illegal relationship between this girl and this adult man, and how he's grooming her, how he's taking advantage of her, but she isn't entirely aware of what's actually going on. That like there are many parts where she seems to think she's sort of the one in charge, and that he really likes her, and that she's very desirable. That and it's all very weird and complex and complicated. We're gonna dive into it later, and the book sort of basically just explores what happens in this relationship. Uh, what weird things happen between them, like what the dynamic is, and how Waldo eventually has those moments where she realizes, no, something is weird about this. Maybe um, like this doesn't excite me anymore, and we should get out of this relationship. And there's a lot of like moments where it seems like the relationship stops, but then there are moments where she's drawn back into the relationship, and it all eventually, we're going to talk about the ending, it eventually culminates in the relationship sort of like fizzling out, and Waldo deciding that she's now gonna do her own thing, and she leaves the teacher, and she also leaves her mom behind. She goes off on a road trip by herself. And that's how the book ends. So this is the general overview of what happens in this book. As you can guess, quite a lot of happy stuff is going on there. Just some general opinions before we jump into like the deeper discussion on like the themes and topics that everyone's been talking about in regards to this book. The writing style is, I think, something you have to get used to. It's written from Waldo's point of view, and it's written to be very not exactly stream of consciousness, but it's sort of a very fluid writing style, especially when she's going on her like shopping binges and all that, and describes her day-to-day lives. It's all very much, oh, then that's this, that, and yeah, and then I pack this and that, and then we do this. It's all very um con- since it's also meant to be sort of like a commentary on this consumerist nature Waldo has, it does have this feeling of, oh, this is actually like some huge stuff that is going on, but to her, it's not a big deal. It's just something she's like deals with. It's like, like she's quickly bored of all the stuff, even if she buys new stuff. It's just something she gets to like get it out of her system to sort of manage her moods or something. And I think that's a good way to that the writing style works, that it gives you that feeling of actually being stuck in this head of this 17-year-old girl. Like just to read from chapter 2 so you get an idea of this. I think this describes it quite well. So Waldo comes home, her mom isn't there, and she like warms up some food and does some shopping. I head into my room with my lasagna and my sticky note, tuck the sticky note in the jewelry box overstuffed with them, and burn my tongue on the lasagna. I watch 10-step curly hair tutorials on YouTube that seem so complicated that I figure I'll just go back to frying it with a blow dry and straightening iron every day and deal with the self-acceptance later. I switch to a video of a girl my age thrifting, then JFK getting his brains blown out in the back of that convertible, then a beauty guru's $700 Sephora haul. I follow the links in her description box to the items from her haul, as she tells me that she seriously has a problem and needs to delete her Sephora app so that she doesn't keep purchasing multiple shades of product that she hasn't even tried. I wore the same shades of cream blush stick that she did, except for Venetian Rose, which is sold out, and would have looked too harsh on my pale skin anyway. I know that the blush isn't gonna transform my life, but it's still nice to believe that during the 3-day shipping time that it could. It's nice to believe that the only difference between me and Margot Robbie is a stick of blush. It's nice to believe promises, even empty ones in a cute typeface on the backs of little cardboard packages, especially those ones. There's something about how assured they are on those pretty little fonts that feels more credible than the ones coming out of people's mouths. I felt the delivery page and the payment page, then my heart races as I scroll down to the bold red looming place order button. I click it and a combination of regret and excitement flushes through my body. A combination so potent that it leaves no space for whatever feeling lurks underneath it. So I think this is sort of a good example of what Waldo is like as a person and what her perception of the world is like. She is simultaneously very self-aware of what she's doing, but also clueless to a certain degree. It's like she knows what's going on. She knows the way that she lives her life is not necessarily healthy, and she knows that she's engaging in this like consumerist, capitalistic propaganda bullshit. But it's like, well, this is sort of what everyone's doing, and this is how I deal with my mood. So I guess it's just what we're doing. Nah, 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 nah. Like sort of that. I think it's an interesting mix of her being way more self-aware than other people her age, maybe, but also her not really coming full circle to what the conclusion to all these self-realizations actually should be. Let's stick with Waldo. Let's talk about Waldo a bit more. What I appreciate about Waldo a lot as a character is that obviously I don't know any 17-year-old or any teenagers personally, but to me it felt quite reflective of what teenager life seems to be like nowadays under this like very big consumerist, very capitalist heavy world that we live in. And a lot of people in the review said that they thought Waldo wasn't entirely likable, which I can totally see. She's not always a very likable person. She sometimes says stuff, does stuff where like that's really mean, that's like really not appropriate and stuff like that. I can totally see that. Um, but for me, it never felt like she was outright being a bad person or something. And here's the thing, that's the big point that I like about Waldo. Waldo is not a perfect victim. So we have this whole thing that she eventually has this sexual relationship with a man who is in his 40s. She's underage. She is his pupil. And I like that the book doesn't turn Waldo into like this perfect victim sort of narrative that a lot of media that talks about these kinds of relationships and grooming instances and something, but that Waldo instead I think feels like a more realistic person, but that a character like Waldo still forces us to understand that she is the victim in this whole scenario. Like, yeah, maybe Waldo isn't entirely likable to us. Maybe Waldo does some stuff that we, as the reader, don't approve of. And yes, we have to read that Waldo very much physically, sexually desires her teacher. She does go out of her way to come onto him, like physically. Like she initiates the first kiss between her and the teacher, and at a school dance, she also, in the moment of when he's isolated in the classroom, she comes onto him physically. And yeah, that happens, but the thing is, Waldo is, always has been, and throughout this entire book, throughout this entire narrative, throughout this entire relationship history, Waldo is the victim. Because no matter what, it doesn't matter that she was actually maybe sexually attracted to him. It doesn't matter that she maybe even initiated some of the physical contact in the beginning. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, she's underage. She's 17 years old and she is his pupil. There is no way, in any way, where it is her fault. And I like that Waldo's character challenges you to accept this, because I can totally see, and I saw some people who were like, this is not a story of grooming, that she comes on to him, that she seduces the teacher, that she seeks him out, that she actually wants this relationship, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. She is 17 years old and his pupil. It doesn't matter. She is the victim in this relationship. And it is grooming. Just because she made advances on him and does find him sexually attractive, it doesn't matter. He still took advantage of her. There is this point in the beginning when they first initiate contact where when she kisses him, he's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. You completely misread what was going on, and we're not doing that. He seems to draw that line at first. However, this is already at a point where you could argue this was already too far. Like the first time they kiss, like she kisses him, it's like they're on a walk, just the two of them. Like this guy in his 40s, her teacher invites her on a walk by herself. Before that, he invited her to dinner with his family by herself. There are already like 2 or 3 moments before that where you're like, that could already be considered a bit weird. And then she tries to kiss him, and he's like, no, we're not, no. And he seems to draw that line at first. And then, after a few weeks, after not seeing each other, they have this encounter at their school dance. And she comes onto him, seemingly. Like, she physically comes onto him in a very promiscuous sort of way. And basically, like, he does finish in that moment when she comes onto him physically. The thing is, he lets this happen. There is no pushback. There is only like, he's like, oh no, yeah, no, we shouldn't, yeah, no, but we shouldn't, no, oh, but he lets it happen. You know, it's it's not like there's any honest to God reluctance. This is a man in his 40s. He's an adult. He's her teacher. He has every means to keep himself away from her, to draw a line, to make this not happen. He is in charge of this situation. He is the adult. This should not happen. There is no way in which it doesn't matter what she did. It was his responsibility to deal with this situation properly, and he didn't. He didn't stop it. He took advantage of her because he enjoyed what was happening. It's just that he did like try to put up a bit of pretense at first, but did eventually go with it because he liked it, and he didn't stop it. That is his fault. He is to blame. She is not to blame. And I'm going to repeat it one more time. She's 17 years old and his pupil. She is and always has been and always will be the victim in this fucked up relationship. It doesn't matter that she comes onto him. It doesn't matter that you don't like her. This book challenges you to actually think that. If you hear stories like this in real life, there's already so much victim blaming stuff going on with like, what was she wearing? Oh, she was coming onto him, so it was fine, blah, 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 blah. This shouldn't happen. And this book challenges you to be like, oh, you don't like her? Oh, you think she was being promiscuous? Oh, you think she was coming onto him? Oh, you think she was sexually attracted to him? Yeah, but that doesn't matter. And I like that the book points the finger at you to be like, it's almost like the book is being like, I dare you to victim blame her. I dare you to victim blame her. It almost feels like that. The book almost challenges you to do that. And I really sort of appreciate that about this book, because it's not entirely, I mean, of course, at the end of the day, it is black and white because, again, she's 17 years old and he's taking advantage of her. But I like that Waldo isn't encapsulating, like, embodies this perfect victim sort of narrative, that she isn't this perfect idea we have of a girl or a young woman in that situation. She's not. But at the end of the day, we still should have sympathy for her. We should still support her as a victim of grooming, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What happened to her was grooming, and it was bad. Now let's talk about Mr. Corgi. So Mr. Corgi doesn't get a first name, it's always just referred to as Mr. Corgi, is her creative writing teacher. Again, he's in his 40s, he's married, is seemingly unhappily so, and he also has a kid. We don't really get to see much of, like, we do get to see a little bit about his home life, but not too much. And similar to Waldo, what I like about Mr. Corgi is that he is not cliche. Like, he's not your cliched, super disgusting, mustache twirling, rapey monster. He's a guy. He's a teacher. He's a teacher who took advantage of his pupil. Because so many men who do stuff like this are just regular guys. They're not all the disgusting monsters, like, on first sight, where you meet, like, oh yeah, you can see that he's a rapist or something like that, he's a groomer. He's a regular guy. He's that kind of person where this kind of story were to break in real life, there would probably be some people who would be like, oh, I would have never thought he would do that because he always seemed like such a normal, nice guy. That sort of person. He's just a regular dude who does a really horrible thing because, and because some men are just awful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, fellow men. We are awful. And I like that. Again, it's not black and white. Just as Waldo is not this perfect victim, Mr. Corgi is not this cliche monster. I've heard some people say that the book tries too hard too much to, like, humanize him, to make us sympathize with him, which I honestly didn't think was the case. Like, the book was just showing us what some of his regular day-to-day life is like his relationship with his wife or with his child. That's it. Like, Mr. Corgi is a pathetic, embarrassing piece of shit of a man. Like, he is. He pulls out all the cliched stuff once he is with Waldo. Like, he gets to talk to her about all the cool vintage movies he likes, about all the cool old music that he hasn't been able to show to anyone. Like, he gets off on being able to show this girl all this cool stuff that she probably doesn't know about yet because she is too young, and she thinks this is so cool because he's so different and mature and likes stuff boys her age don't like. It's that. And he gets off on this idea. He literally has the cliche line in this book, "You make me feel young again." That's how pathetic and embarrassing he is. He literally says this to her, and that's all it is about for him. He doesn't love her. This is not a serious relationship. Like, obviously it isn't, but he's really just there to feel something, because he's just like he's like an old man who's unhappy in his marriage, who's been married for so long, whose life has become really boring, who doesn't have anyone who, like, admires him or his writing work and all that. And suddenly there is this girl who is probably, like, really gorgeous and beautiful to him, who takes an interest in his work and the stuff he likes, and he is just all over that. And it's just so pathetic. There's so many moments in this book when they talk with each other where you can just feel how sad and pathetic of a little man he is with a really, really stupid name. I love that he doesn't get a first name. He's just stupid Mr. Corgi. Like, it was so clear to me how the book wasn't trying to humanize him or anything. He's just a pathetic piece of shit. And he doesn't see what he's doing. Like, towards the later third of the book, there is this moment where Waldo wants the relationship to be like serious, and uh, but feels like it's not really going anywhere, and she like wants to break it off and everything, and he's like, yeah, no, 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 I'm gonna leave my wife for you. I promise, I'm actually doing it. Um, and he's promised it so many times, but didn't actually do it. Like in his last third of the book, he actually does it. Like he leaves his wife and gets this like tiny flat, this tiny apartment, where he lives with Waldo for like a little bit, and it's so stupid. Like obviously he doesn't tell his wife why he's leaving her, because he would be in prison if he admitted it probably, and obviously because it's pathetic and disgusting if he told her, and it's like so almost comedically so to see how he like throws all his life away to be with like this like 17-year-old girl who this just you can tell this is how this just feels so unreal, and how he thinks that this is gonna be an actual thing, that they will have a life or something, when it's clearly not. And when it becomes clear that this is not really going to stick between them, and that Waldo wants to leave and all that, he of course immediately starts victim blaming her. When she actually at some point points out that she is 17 slash, I think she turns 18 at some point throughout the book, 17, 18 years old, and he's like, yeah, you're underage when it suits you, but you're mature when it suits you. Like pick a line and all that. Like because it very much has this vibe of that he thinks she's very mature for her age and all that, which basically just suits him to excuse that he's having sex with her. But at the point when she actually wants to like maybe leave, and she says, "Well, dude, you're the one who's sleeping with a 17-year-old." He's like, "Well, yeah, well, now you're pulling that card out. You can't decide if you want how old you want to be." And like he's immediately sort of turning this around, trying to spin it in a way that victim blames her, that she came on to him and it doesn't matter how old she is now, and blah 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 blah, that it's not his fault. That even though again he's 40 years old and her teacher, he was the one who took advantage of her. He was the one who made this happen, who allowed this to happen, who continuously let this go on, and continuously engaged in sexual relations with the 17-year-old. And at no point does he feel like he should take responsibility for what was happening, but immediately sort of pushes it off to her, to Waldo, when he realizes that this is not going to work out, because of course it's not. So yeah, already talked about it now a little bit. At the end of the book is like they obviously they don't end up together. It's the relationship fizzles out essentially. Um, Waldo comes to realize that she isn't happy in this relationship with Mr. Corgi. That he is essentially just like this sad old piece of shit who makes her feel young and all that. And she realizes that this is not a real thing. That this excitement she initially felt about him has gone away. She's realizing, not fully, but she is sort of on the same way. She realizes, yeah, this isn't really the kind of relationship I should have at this point in my life. And her mom at the same time seems to have a similar realization, because her mom had this on and off again relationship with a dude throughout the entire book, and her mom was like at some point towards the end also was like, yeah, I finally broke off this relationship with my stupid boyfriend, and that's over now. Now we're gonna have like some good mom daughter time. We're gonna finally take the trip that we wanted to take. And you think that's actually gonna end well, and that's also the point where Waldo also breaks it off with Mr. Corgi and all that. And then Waldo comes home, and she actually finds her mum in bed with the boyfriend she initially actually wanted to leave and all that. And it's that at that point where Waldo just decides, well, fuck everyone. this all of these relationships are not working for me. All these people are toxic and they suck. And she decides to take this trip that she initially wanted to take with her mom by herself, and that's how the book ends. And I know that some people were dissatisfied with how this relationship obviously plays out and how it ends. Like, a lot of people were unhappy, I think, with the fact that Mr. Corgi wasn't punished, that there weren't any like bigger consequences to what was going on. And I can see that we obviously we want to see him punished. We want there to be consequences for this really bad thing that has happened. At the same time, again, I feel like this is a very realistic approach that Jennette McCurdy is taking here, because a lot of these relationships or grooming things that happen, they don't end in this very heroic way where the bad guy gets caught and gets put in prison and the girl feels better and receives therapy and all that. That's how not how a lot of cases end like this in real life. Very often these sort of relationships, for people this has happened to, they just sort of fizzle out. Like, if they do happen to end, they just sort of end. They like fizzle out slowly. They fade away for whatever reasons. And men who commit stuff like this don't very often see the consequences of it. And Waldo at the end of the book also hasn't fully realized yet what has happened to her. It's not like Waldo ends this book fully 100% realizing that she was groomed and taken advantage of and raped throughout the book. That's not how she fully perceives it yet. I think that's very realistic that at her age she might not even perceive it like that yet, but like in 10, 20 years time, when she reflects on this, she might actually realize that what has happened to her was a really, really awful thing, and then she needs to work through that. I just thought it was, uh, I thought it was a realistic ending. And some people were like, "Well, nothing changed. There were no consequences, and Waldo is still the same person." Waldo, I feel like, is not the same person. She very much is not the same person. She starts out this book in this mindset of that she really desires her teacher. It almost feels like it's similar to like all these items she shops for all the time. That Mr. Corgi is now something exciting, something almost like consumerist that she can engage with, that excites her, that gets her out of her regular life, that feels a bit different, and then she loses excitement for something, and realizes it's not actually good for her, sort of like that. And she starts off this book like really wanting to be with this man. Like, she's completely obsessed with him and has all these like fantasies about him and all that, and has like idolizes him like majorly, especially like in a physical way. I think that he's so cool and that he's so different. She does not believe that by the end of the book. By the end of the book, again, she doesn't fully realize this is grooming what has happened to her, but she comes to a realization that Mr. Kogi is not good for her, that this is a relationship that is not good for her, that Mr. Cookie can't give her what she needs at this age, that this is not a healthy relationship for her to be in, that Mr. Cookie is a sad piece of shit. She does have this realization, and that's why she leaves him behind. And she also has this realization about her mother, that throughout the entire book she had like this on and off thing with her mom, where you felt like they might understand each other if they talk to each other more, and that they sort of like each other, but not really, because the mom is never home. But then you have this glimmer of hope where the mom's like, "Yeah, no, we're really gonna go on this trip." And just like Waldo, you feel like, "Oh yeah, cool, maybe this is finally happens." And the disappointment hits that the mom betrayed Waldo, so to speak. And then Waldo has this realization at the end where she leaves those toxic relationships behind and goes on a trip to heal herself, of self discovery. I feel like we do end this book at a very different point than where we started it. So I don't really understand why people say, "Oh, well, nothing's changed, or Waldo is still the same." No, Waldo hasn't completely changed, but she definitely has realized some things about herself and about the relationships in her life. And at the end of the book takes time to understand herself and her life better, which she definitely would not have done at the beginning of this story. Okay, another aspect that a lot of people were talking about is like how the relationship between Waldo and Mr. Corgi is depicted in this book, because I mean, as you can already guess from the cover, this is supposed to be provocative. There's a lot of sexual content in this book, and I understand why some people were upset about that, because yes, we do have on-page descriptions of the sex between Waldo and Mr. Corgi, and I do understand the complaints of people who were like, why do we have to see the depiction of underage sex, like sex between an underage person and an adult man? I can totally see that, and I can totally understand this argument of why do we need to explicitly depict this. But I can also see why McCurdy wanted it to be that way, because she just wanted to be realistic. She wanted to also do this for shock value. The sex scenes in this are not meant to be romantic. They do not feel romantic at all. They feel very animalistic, and also very icky in many places, which, from what I've seen from some interviews with McCurdy, is what she wanted to do, because she said that she wanted to write about sex in a way that she understands it, because to her, sex isn't always this super passionate explosion of feelings all around super duper great thing, but that sex is also just a sticky, yucky, physical act that's not always fun, that's not always great. It can be animalistic, it can be disgusting, it can be weird, it can be awkward, it can be all kinds of things. And I feel like you can feel that throughout the book. Again, I can totally see the argument of being like, well, why do we have to write about it like this explicitly? I totally get it, but I still felt like I could feel what McCurdy wanted me to feel about the sex scenes in this book. I do feel like we didn't need to read that many of them, to be honest. Like, but I sort of get what she was trying to do, and I like that the sex scenes in this do manage to convey this feeling of, this is weird, this is uncomfortable. Like people were like, I don't want to read these scenes, and they make me uncomfortable and bad. And I was like, yeah, good. That's what they're supposed to. You're supposed to think this is weird. Again, you're reading about a relationship between a 17-year-old and a 40-year-old teacher. Of course, this is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable and weird and shocking. It's not a good thing that's happening. You're supposed to feel very weirded out by this. And this is also sort of why I like the weird names for the two main characters in this, like Waldo and Mr. Corgi, feels so utterly ridiculous, especially when you like read these more intimate scenes, because they immediately also help to like snap you out of it the moment where you might start to think that the book romanticizes something or anything, and then you have to read like how they're making out, and he like groans her name, and it's like Waldo, and you're like, that is. I love how that pulls you out of the reading experience immediately. That you realize how stupid this is. That you're supposed to feel weird about reading this. Like, the names really do help with that as well. And yeah, there are some sex scenes in here that do feel a little crass and over the top, where you could argue, why are we doing that, for what reason? Like, for example, there's a scene that has to do with like when they have sex, and while Waldo is like on her period, for example, and she wants like her period blood on his penis, and then the penis in her face and all that. Like, yeah, it feels weird. It's supposed to feel weird. At the same time, I do not get how people were complaining about this is like so explicit and in detail, like it feels like they're romanticizing the blah, blah. No. Like, as someone who's read a bunch of other like explicit novels, this does not feel like anything like it. I've read way more details in cozy romantasy books. The sex in there are way more explicit and in detail than anything that we get in here. Like, the longest sex scene in this book is maybe like 3-4 pages, whereas I literally just read a romantasy book where the spice scene was like 15 pages of super explicit detail of what's going on. This is Still explicit, but compared to the other stuff, nothing. Not really. And yes, maybe we could have done with like fewer sex scenes throughout the book. I totally get it, but I also get why McCurdy wanted to put this kind of stuff in there for like the shock and for the realism, because it's just like stuff that happens in the world, unfortunately. And some people, well, I think some people also had a problem with this because the book doesn't, like, the argument for some people was this book doesn't explicitly enough state that what is going on is bad. Like, more people wanted the book to explicitly point out that this is bad, what's going on. They want there to be more demonization of what Mr. Corgi is doing. They want the book to be more explicitly to point a finger at what's going on, be like, this is grooming, this is terrible, this is what's going on. And the thing is, it's not like the book is not framing any of this as good. The book is not framing any of this relationship stuff that's going on between Waldo and Mr. Corgi as good. Like, it never does. Like, it is more subtle about it. I'll say it is more subtle about it. The book never directly points a finger at what's going on and is like, this is a bad thing. There's never like a character or anything that explicitly states anything like that. But the book doesn't need that. And I also feel like the book shouldn't have to. Like, do you really need the book that's about sexual relations between a 17-year-old and a 40-year-old? Do you really need this book to explicitly tell you this is bad? You should already know going into this that this is bad. Why do you need the book to explicitly tell you, oh, by the way, this is grooming and grooming is bad? You should know this. I feel like the book sort of expects you to go in with the feeling, oh, by the way, relationships between underage people and adults are illegal and bad. Why do you need the book to explicitly to your face tell you this is evil? You should know it is. You should really know it is. The book doesn't explicitly have to tell you that. And it's just really this case of where I'm like, this is what the book is. Like, that's the point of the book. There were so many people who were like, oh, but this makes me uncomfortable, or it shouldn't be like that, or this is bad. Why isn't the book explicitly saying that it's bad? And this feels illegal to read, and it feels bad, and this shouldn't happen, and blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. I've never read so many reviews on Goodreads or like on other platforms where people are giving this book like really negative reviews for being like, oh, this depicts a relationship between a 17-year-old and 40-year-old. It doesn't demonize it enough, and the sex feels awkward and bad and blah blah blah. And I've been shouting at almost all of these reviews like, that's the point. Like, I just, like, that's the point, guys. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. You're supposed to already feel like going into this is not good. And it is a book about grooming. Of course it is. It's a 40-year-old man who is a teacher who has sex with his underage student. Of course it's grooming. So many people are like, oh, this isn't grooming because she comes onto him. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter that she's promiscuous, that she comes onto him, that she's attracted to him. It does not matter. That's the whole point of this book. The whole point of this book is being like, this is not a good thing. Unfortunately, these are relationships that happen, but they are not good. And Waldo is the victim. That's the point. Like, how are you not seeing that? I'm talking in circles at this point, but I feel like, I don't know, if you've read this book, do you also have that feeling when you look at other reviews where you were like, some people just didn't get it? Like, I don't know, I've seen some reviews where just like, I feel like people just didn't understand what is going on. Like, you can still, don't get me wrong, you can still understand what the book is doing and dislike it anyway. Like, that's fine. I can totally see that. This isn't a perfect book. Like, it definitely has flaws. Like, for me, for example, I feel like it would have been interesting to hear more about Walter's relationship with her mom, because there's clearly a lot of family issue stuff going on, especially with like the dad who walked out on the family. We don't really hear anything about that. All that would have been interesting. There's a whole secondary character who's I think a Mormon friend of Waldo's, and I feel like that whole friendship is actually quite interesting. And I wish we had heard more about that as well, because we don't really hear about any other relationships or friendship Waldo has outside like her business with Mr. Corgi. I wish the book could have detailed that a bit more. The book also feels a little repetitive in some parts as well. And personally, I also feel like I understand why the sex scenes are in there and why they're so explicit. I do not have a problem with that. I just feel like some of them we didn't necessarily, just for pacing issues, we didn't necessarily need to read about. Like, this is not a perfect book. But I also don't think it's terrible. It doesn't like reinvent the wheel as it comes to like stories about this type of topic. I still feel like you can tell that McCurdy really went deep and tried to tell a personal story and tried to be very realistic about it. And I really appreciate that she didn't pull any punches, that she wanted to be realistic about it. She didn't paint Waldo as this perfect victim, and that Mr. Corgi isn't like this mustache twirling, disgusting type of monster. But the lines are still very clear. But I like that the book challenges you to always see the line where it is. Like, the book throws so many things at you where it tries to challenge you to be like, oh hey, Mr. Corgi might actually be sort of a normal, nice guy. Oh hey, Waldo is actually promiscuous and comes onto him. Like, it throws so many things at you that challenge you to be like, I dare you to think this is normal, or I dare you to victim blame Waldo. Like, I like that the book sort of throws this at you, that it does challenge you to really think about these types of relationships. And it doesn't matter. Just to reiterate this one more time so that everyone gets it, it doesn't matter what she did or what happened. She's 17 years old, and his pupil, he could have stopped it, and he didn't. So Waldo is always the victim of grooming in this story. Okay, that's all I really wanted to say about Harvest Age. I completely understand how this is such a controversial book that gets talked about so much at this point. I understand people who dislike it, who have good reasons to dislike it. However, have also seen, like I just said, so many reviews where I feel like people just didn't quite understand the book correctly. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've never shouted so often, "That's the point," at any other book than this one. So I would really love to hear from you if you've read this book already. What your thoughts are on it, like positive or negative. I would really love to hear what's going on. Be respectful, of course. This is a difficult topic to talk about, so be respectful in the comments. But I would love to hear your opinions on it. So drop something down in the comments below. So yeah, controversial book, heavy topics. Next time, to lighten the moods, we're gonna do something easy. We're gonna do a big old romantasy rant, because I just finished reading Alex Astor's new book, and oh boy, we're gonna go on a rant. So prepare for that one next time. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.